Welcome to the Over the Hump podcast. Your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahman breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahman cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahman. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahman excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahman bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches and hearts. Brought to you by BRC Ranch, where the Brahman legacy thrives and stories are woven into the very fabric of ranching. This is Over the Hump. And now your hosts, Brendan Cottrell, Rachel Cottrell, and Keaton Dodd.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Over the Hump podcast. Today, I'm interviewing Lyn Castaneda, who is Director of Business Development for BRC Ranch and Brahman Country Beef. It's a great story talking about Lyn's journey from Florida to here at BRC and talking a lot about the business side of our beef program, and I hope you'll enjoy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Over the Hump podcast. Today, our topic is all things Brahman beef, and our guest today is Lyn Castaneda, who is our Business Development Director of BRC Ranch. So welcome, Lyn.
Thank you, Miss Rachel. I'm glad to be here.
This is your first podcast, right?
Yes, ma'am. Kind of nervous, but we'll see how it goes.
So I have a question. Do you actually listen to our podcast?
I sure do.
Okay.
I haven't listened to all of them from the beginning, but lately, like this past year and since I've come back, I have been listening to mostly all of them.
Yeah, awesome. So today we thought we would really give like an in-depth look into our Brahman Country Beef program and talking about our experiences feeding and harvesting 100% purebred Brahman beef. And just to kind of give a little background, we started Brahman Country Beef in 2019 before COVID hit, and we were mostly selling our Brahman beef at the local farmers markets. Then COVID hit, and really our beef program just expanded like crazy. And 3 years ago, we opened the Ranch Downtown, which is a brick-and-mortar retail store that's open 7 days a week, and our main product that we sell there is our Brahman Country Beef. And so it's really started, from us processing one steer as a test run to now like a very viable, legit business. And Lynn joined our team about a year ago with his main purpose being serving as the beef manager and the business program manager. So Lynn, I'm going to kick it off to you, and if you would just share your story. I know everybody knows you from the stock shows, and they've seen you around the stock shows for many years, but they may not know your business, experience and expertise, and just kind of tell us how you got here.
Yeah, of course. So I didn't get involved with cattle till my sophomore year of high school. It just happened to be there was a ranch not far from where I live, about 60 miles down there in South Florida, and my brother went and checked out a sale and ended up buying a bull calf there. I had no idea what we were going to do with it. He had no idea what we were doing, so we kind of just took it over to our place. So we grew up on 5 little acres there on the south side of Lake Okeechobee, and my parents, my family, we run a diesel mechanic shop, so that's pretty much what I grew up in. But we also had a small farm where we raised chickens, pigs, and some sheep. So that was the first of cattle we had, and we had a bull calf and didn't know what I was doing. So dove in head first and started traveling up to the ranch and started out just as an intern, began traveling to shows. That would have been the year of 2017. So got started the fall of 16, started traveling all of 2017, and that's where I started coming out to Texas. So long drives, many hours on the road, just working with cattle and show cattle specifically, working alongside all the ranch hands and met a lot of great people. Actually, this would be the story of how I met Harley. So along that fall of 2016, right before my first ever show in December of 2016, Harley gave me a first one-on-one showmanship clinic. So he was the first person to show me how to show an animal, show how to Brahman heifer he had there, and gave me a little one-on-one clinic. Still didn't know what I was doing after that, but slowly, that bond just grew between Harley and I, and we were always working those weekends. pretty much just traveling, met many people. There's some big families down there in Florida that helped me get started and really took good care of me when we were on the road because it was just me. Sometimes my brothers, and they would tag along just depending if they were free or not. But yeah, I just dove in head first. And so when I graduated high school, moving forward to 2019, I graduated that spring, and that's when I decided to move to Texas. So before then, I was going to stay in Florida and go to the University of Florida and stay down there, stay closer to home. But my parents always pushed me to kind of chase this dream of mine of raising cattle of my own someday and having my own operation. So moved to Texas, packed up my stuff, moved to Texas in 2019, and I lived out here a full year before deciding to move back to Florida. At that time, that fall of 2020, this was post-COVID or during COVID, enrolled in online school because I just, tuition-wise, it was cheaper for me. So I enrolled in online school, and at that time, I got a call from Harley, which I had known him already several years, and he's like, hey, we're needing an extra hand. I messed up my hand pretty bad, going to need surgery. Turns out it's one of those Harley stories. Didn't end up needing surgery, but he got me out here to Texas one more time to Wharton County, Brahmin country. Moved out here that fall of 20. Immediately just loved the atmosphere. You know, I loved working for you and Brandon. The team y'all guys ran, the crew, just from the get-go, it was just a chemistry there, and I loved it and worked well in the show barn. That was my thing, and that Harley and I just spent many hours in there.
I was trying to think back to that. Where did you live? Did you live with Harley?
Yes.
And I think it was supposed to be for 3 weeks, right? You were
Yeah,
going to
like
come for 3 weeks.
Something like that, a month or two.
If I remember the conversations occurring here, was this around Labor Day? There was some conversation that you were interested in coming, but you also wanted to stay on the Florida beach for an extra week or something like that. Do you remember that? You were like, I'm not going to come till, I feel like it was after Labor Day because you were like, I just want one more week at the beach this summer. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And
yes, because it had been a while since I had been on a Florida beach. So yeah, I remember, and I was like, man, how soon do you need me out there?
I know. And then we went to that jackpot show in Gonzales. No, not Gonzales. We went to do you remember this? We went to a show in Louisiana over Labor Day weekend, and it was so hot. But was that right around the same time? This was like Big Dolores' first show. Or was that a year later?
That was a year later.
Oh, okay.
That was a year later.
The years fly by.
So my first show with BRC, being a part of the BRC team, would have been Washington
County. With Glitter Sparkle? Is that right? When she was a baby?
Yes. Because Dutton would have been our...
Yes. Dutton was showing 805, had just had her calf. Yes. Boombox. Boombox and Dutton were showing. Yeah.
Yes. That was my first official show with BRC.
That was when all the captains started rolling out. That was when the first captains started coming out.
Right. Yeah. So
I remember you every day sitting in the show barn office taking your chemistry classes online. It was like every single day. You know?
Yeah, so that virtual school, or COVID, everything moved virtually. So yeah, I enrolled in that school in Florida, and I would just connect to those Zoom calls
every day. I failed chemistry at A&M in person. I don't know how I just kept thinking, I don't know how you did organic chemistry on Zoom and managed to pass, but
it was tough.
Did.
So my schedule or my routine quickly became join those Zoom calls at the barn, leave the barn, do whatever homework I had that evening, and then same thing the next day until I got into, so that I went home after nationals that year, that fall of 20. We had the national show. I went back home, and then that January turned right back around, and that's when I officially came back full time for that show barn assistant.
Yes.
And I moved in with Harley again. So I lived with Harley. Funny thing, I lived with Harley while he was dating Kate, while they were engaged, and then while they were married. I saw it all, and I was the third wheel on every single one of their dates. But moved that January of 21 out here again, officially in Wharton County, and I was joining those Zoom calls in the barn. Got into working out. That was my escape from just that routine.
Yeah.
I believe that summer of 21, I did go home for 2 months maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I took a good break, went home again. Because I was still, before I even moved out here, I was in that position where I was just wanting to be home. Because, like I mentioned before, we had that family diesel mechanic shop. It's always a family business. And anytime I go home now, it's like, well, son, this is what we need to get taken care of while you're at home. My parents tell me this is what we need done before you leave back. So
Yeah.
it's stay working, even when I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
Work. So we had that full year.
When did you start at Sam Houston?
So yeah, I got that first full year, that whole year of 21 out here, besides the summer break, and then all of spring of 22, I finished with that. I guess the AA degree, and immediately just decided. I had a friend at Sam Houston, Lindsay Wilder, who actually was a big friend of mine. Yeah. She also, like, when I was starting out showing, she was my first friends in Florida. Okay. So she told me about good old Sam Houston and being a Bearcat and how it's just a small school. And back home, I grew up in a small town, went to a small private school. So I liked that just close-knit environment where you had personal relationships with professors, one-on-one type deal. So I looked into it, enrolled, got accepted that summer. So I had a summer term online. I think I took 2 classes the summer of 22 online, and then decided, okay, it's time, go be a college student, live in a college town, enjoy it, make those relationships, those lifelong friendships type deal. And so that fall of 22 would have been when I moved to Huntsville, Texas.
And what was your major?
Ag business.
Ag business. Yeah. And who was like your favorite? Did you have a favorite professor?
Yes, actually, Dr. Nair. He was one of the ag business major professors, and he was just down to earth, a good guy, always helped the students big time. Like any time of the day, he was there with any questions you might have. My minor was animal science, so Dr. Stanley Kelly, he was really hard, but really good professor. I enjoyed his classes. So the fall of 22 would have been when I moved there, and I think I stayed out there occasionally, or would travel to shows still. I stayed a part of the show crew, traveled to shows, and professors there were really understanding of that. Whenever I would be gone, especially a week long for Houston. Yeah. And then I guess the summer of 23, I came back down, worked the summer, and started back that fall. Everything was going great. Graduated the spring of 24. And I think before then, the fall of 23, you guys were already reaching out, and I was really interested in coming back full time. And just because I've always loved it here, and I knew with what y'all do, the operation's always growing. There's constantly different things y'all are looking for and expanding in. And I love that mentality. So as soon as I graduated in May of 24, I was ready to move back.
Yeah. So you're almost at 1 year.
Yeah.
Well, I remember our conversations. I think we were having like our end of year wrap up meeting, and we knew we needed to add another team member. We felt like the beef program really needed a, full-time person. But I also remember the conversations with you where you were very clear that you wanted to come back, but you did not just want to be the show barn assistant, right? You were like, ma'am. I have a college degree. Like, I am interested in business development. Of course, you still love showing, but you were very clear, like, I'm not coming back here just to be Harley's assistant. And that's very fair, you know? And really the business experience, business degree you got was exactly what we needed, because I don't have a business degree. I have an animal science degree, and I do our business management, but I don't know what I'm doing. And on the other hand, Brandon does have an ag business degree, but sometimes he makes the worst financial decisions on our team. So, that expertise was exactly what we needed. So when you came back on, the position you took was business development, but really a lot of that is working with the beef program.
Yes.
And it just continues to grow.
Yeah, no, and I like where I'm at, or my position. I mean, it's a title, but I'm involved in every moving part. Right. I feel like I'm very flexible in what I do, because where I started in the barn and would work alongside Brandon and Keaton now. I love being able to do, like, no 2 days are alike for me. I'm at the store, at the ranch.
In Louisiana,
with that new.
Well, when we did that expansion, I mean, you were huge in that, because we need to do a whole podcast on that expansion, but we did that with financing, I mean, we didn't have the money to go out and buy that, so all of that we did with financing, and that whole expansion took a lot of business planning, like cash flow planning and, planning of what we're going to buy. And I mean, you've been out there on every trip except this week. You stayed this week, but stayed back here. But, that business experience you had was huge in that the ag business experience you had was huge
Yes,
in,
ma'am.
in us being able to do that. What is a typical day for you?
Well,
Well, I guess I would say a typical week because
Yeah.
every day is different.
every day is different. I guess if a routine day for me would be every day starting out at the ranch, just kind of getting with the crew in the mornings. We kind of discuss what's going on the day, the week, arranging a plan for what needs to get done that day on the ranch itself, and then kind of discussing what I need to get done, what Keaton might need to get done, what Harley might need to get done, just because we have several different things going on too.
Mhm.
So that's the start of the day, and then from there we just kind of move on to tackling those tasks. I guess on routine, I would start out over there, see what's going on, see if they need a hand with anything, then make my way to the ranch downtown where I'm restocking beef every so often, at least 2-3 times a week. Getting with the store manager, Dakota, she'll tell me what the specials are. If we're low on several cuts, we kind of just talk between the two. She'll call or text, let me know what's going on, if I need to restock. And then arranging harvest dates, that's kind of key, and moving steers and finding out where we're going to process and how many head, and if we're running low on beef, just kind of determining what we need to process, the amount. That's kind of the big part, I guess, would be arranging the harvest dates, talking with the processors and with the feedlot managers about pickups for when we need those steers ready or when they think they'll be ready, making sure we're going to be able to get enough yield out of them. So
On average, do you say you talk to our processors once a week?
I think so.
Twice a week?
It'd be once a week after drop off, and then it'd be maybe twice a week when we're getting close to pickup.
Yeah. So let's share. I mean, I think a lot of people maybe hear about maybe they even hear about our specific beef program, but they hear like a farm to table beef program and they think about like just a cooler of meat at a farmer's market. And yeah, that is how we got started. But like our beef business is legit.
Yeah,
and
it's no side hustle
right.
for us. We're full
not.
scale.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a lot of planning, arranging dates, organizing the cattle, getting the cattle ready. I mean, that's the biggest thing, tracking the performance, recording those numbers, and managing customer relationships too, as far as the people who are coming in to buy our beef. They want to know where it's coming from. We need to be, clear and transparent on what they're getting and what they're buying. And that's a big part of it.
You really are. I mean, you hear the phrase like farm to table or pasture to plate, but literally you're doing that. Like that is your job every day. It literally is pasture to plate. Maybe let's walk someone through, I guess, like the process, like how we start them here, when we take them to a feedlot, when we process, how often we process.
Yeah, so I guess it all starts out, they're born, we get these bulls close to weaning time, and by weaning usually we have an idea of which cattle will be steers, which ones are going to steer program, which ones are going to our bull development program by weaning, sometimes
and what
even
would that
before.
be? Share like what helps you decide what's going to be a steer or not a steer. I mean, obviously, Brandon's is birth weight.
Yeah, birth weight is big. Structural soundness, that's kind of a big thing. Disposition also.
I mean, anything that looks at y'all crossways.
Yeah, they're going into the steer program.
You put into the steer program.
Those are kind of the key things, which I wish Brandon and Keaton were here because they're a big part of that decision making as far as what's going to be a steer, what's going to make bulls. Yeah. And sometimes, they'll go through weaning, we'll put them on feed, and some just don't have the growth and performance as others. And so with that lack of performance, they'll become a steer. So sometimes it's a little later on, they might be yearling age before we can think about putting them into the steer program. But hopefully by then, by the time they're a year old, we'll get them over to different feed rations. I guess we're still developing them, and we won't haul these things to a feed lot to get finished on grain until they're about 200 days out from when they're needed to be processed. So I would say at the time they're 14, 15 months old, we'll be thinking about getting them to a feed lot and finishing them off till we get to that age range of 18 to 22 months. That's whenever they will be finished and ready to be processed. We typically don't go over that. I think our average date or age of kill is maybe 20 months.
Yeah, 19 to 20 months.
Yeah, 19 to 20 months.
That having this beef program is huge for our bull sales program. And that's been one of the best things that we've gotten out of this is that we have such a good market for our retail beef that if a bull is even like borderline, Brandon and Keaton, our whole team, they have very high standards for the bulls that we sell to other ranchers, for seed stock or commercial, and that's birth weight, quality, soundness, disposition, like when you buy a bull from BRC, we want it to be hassle-free and high quality, and if, because of our steer program, if a bull gives us anything that's not going to make him, like not a perfect breeding bull, but ideal breeding bull, he just goes into the steer program and we're not losing money off of him.
Right.
So it's really tightened up our bull marketing. And I think that's one of the reasons why people trust us so much for bulls is like, they know they're not going to have a crazy bull. They're not going to have someone with bad feet. They're not going to have a heavy birth weight because we have an outlet for anything that could, be a red
bull
flag.
that'll go out and do its job, or one that won't do its job. That's the one that we'll cut out instantly.
Right.
But our customers will for sure get a bull that'll get out, cover cows on, good sound structure and, pass a fertility test early on. That's something Brandon's been pushing on. We've had a couple now pass the fertility test at 13 months old. So
Johnny Brahman.
Johnny Brahman, international champion at Houston this year. So it's interesting, and it's something that I love. We keep those records, and at the age of when they pass yearling from that 340 days to a 480 day age, we're ultrasounding. Everything gets ultrasounded. These bulls are ultrasounded, so we get good numbers on ribeye area, the intramuscular fat, rump and back fat. We use those numbers, and so our commercial cattlemen, our main customers, they know what they're going to get out of these bulls as far as passing those carcass qualities to their cat or to those progeny of them. So I think that's also a big deal for us and our customers is that we're getting those numbers, and those numbers are translating to our steers as well that we sell in a beef store.
Absolutely. People who are skeptical of Brahmin carcass quality maybe sometimes like give you a side eye when you say like you're raising 100% Brahmin beef. And for our customers that are putting our bulls on an Angus or a Hereford cow, we know our bulls are not going to improve the marketing, but they're going to maintain or they're not going to hurt the marketing for those commercial customers that do sell like on the grid or on the rail or something like that. Because you see that meat when it comes back from now our meat is not technically USDA graded as far as like prime or choice, but anybody with a little bit of meat judging experience, you can look at the marbling and see it's high quality.
Oh yeah.
It's
and
really
I think we get a lot of reviews back on our customers as far as that palatability of our meat, that leanness, the texture, the flavor, you're not diminishing any flavor just by using a Brahmin influenced steer,
Some say you could be adding flavor.
Yes.
There's a lot of places we could go and maybe just kind of kick it in a different direction. But how many head of cattle did we do last year? Or how many are we on track for this year?
Last year was 75, I believe, 74, 75, that number. And then this year, we're on track as far as set dates and the amount of head I have scheduled already to the end of the year. We're at 65, but that number will increase once we get closer to those holidays. Because I think we were about that pace last year too, whenever I got started. And then we quickly had to add dates and schedule in some more dates during those holiday seasons in the fall. So I think we're going to be close to 80 this year.
You might be at 100 because right now, so far this year, we've done 25 and it's in April.
So yeah, it'll be close. It'll be a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. So where do you get your cattle supply?
So going into that, obviously we do raise a lot of our own Brahmin steers, but we also, with the demand growing so much, it's hard to keep up that supply of steers on our own. So we have looked to source through cooperators for purebred Brahmin steers, of course. And these cooperators have used our genetics. And I think last year we may have purchased 20 head of that 75. And this year we've already purchased some. So we do purchase a good bit just to maintain that supply of steers. And they are all purebred Brahmins. They have that quality, that same texture or carcass quality that we would, just kind of certify to our customers that they're not losing any quality in those steers purchased. I want to say that does change our spreadsheets. We're big on spreadsheets and numbers. Thanks to you, Rachel. I love it. Like that was a big part of my degree, spreadsheets and, record keeping, maximizing profits. So that does change our break even sometimes, because when it comes to purchasing these cattle, it goes from, cost of feeding to cost of purchase. And that all changes depending on the market. There's a little bit of negotiating there and some shrinkage on the price of weight of when we're going to purchase these cattle, because we get an average weight from the feed lot on the lot we purchase, and then we roll that back a couple cents off live market price. And so that changes a lot of our break even, formulas.
Yeah.
But
did you ever think you'd be buying fat steers like this?
I did not.
Was it the last week in our staff meeting, you rattled off some number and a slide and a something or another. We're like, what? Who is this guy?
Yeah, it's like I said, I did study business, obviously, but that practice went heavy into my position here, and I love it. I'm growing with the position. It's something I'm learning, something new every day, and I'm trying to learn as a manager of business, you got to maximize profits. So it's like shrinking those tiny costs, minimizing those costs, and trying to find the best deal that's going to work out for us at the store. And, like when we arrange those processing dates and we make a drop off, we send in a cut sheet. And on that cut sheet, usually you and I will discuss what we'll have on that cut sheet, because sometimes it changes when we have different specials. We'll ask for chili meat, stew meat, so stuff like that, different cuts, different as far as like briskets. Sometimes we'll switch those up.
Well, I feel like we added stew meat this year. Patties was something that we recently added, and people really like that. I mean, surprisingly, oxtails are popular, the cheek meat, anything like that. So y'all may not realize, but we have this monster spreadsheet that is our steer closeout sheet, and we track a break even on every single animal. So I'm going to pull it up right now. We have, I guess, all together since the start of our beef program, right now we're at maybe 219 head of cattle that we're tracking. And we are tracking, I'm just going to pull it up. We track, whether we raised or purchased it, the live weight, who the processor is, days on feed, age it was harvested,
Brahman beef is the next big thing in the meat industry. Known for its great flavor along with heart-healthy benefits, Brahman beef is taking the country by storm. Brahman country beef features great-tasting, heart-healthy beef raised by BRC Ranch. We ship nationwide with everything from premium steaks to briskets, ground beef, and even hard-to-find cuts like tri-tip, pecana, oxtails, and the elusive Brahman Hump. Visit BrahmanCountryBeef.com and start your order today.
Different lines. This is an overwhelming spreadsheet,
Yes.
I will say, but it's really, really amazing, just the different things that kind of go into the bottom line, right? I think our average, so I don't even know where to start, but maybe starting at retail product yield, like we had to say what's our biggest factor in whether a steer makes or loses money, and how much they make or lose. What would those be?
So I think there we're looking at overall feed cost. If they're able to convert that feed into pounds gain and minimize those days on feed, that's the biggest thing we look for. So I think that's our biggest thing, changing the amount of days on feed, and that, or reducing that average days on feed. Yes, ma'am.
While still keeping a high yield.
Yes. Correct.
And a baseline of quality, right?
Yes.
So 3 things: feed, yield, quality.
Quality,
yeah.
And I would say this, we're not the typical meat market where we sell based on average weights of cuts or weight per pound on the price. We've got a set price on all of our premium cuts, and that's the way we market it. So we get back, ribeyes, fillets, sirloins, we've got a set price. Is not determined on weight. So the overall yield we get back from the hot carcass would determine how much money we get back. And so it's a little different, and it's a little more tedious as far as keeping up with the inventory and making sure we get good numbers back, and kind of having a set number on cuts we expect to get back, and determining when we get those cattle back if we got those set cuts or more.
Yeah. So you should probably just walk someone through what your day is when you're unpacking beef. But yes, we kind of have an idea of if we send a steer, this is what, and we ask for these certain cuts, this is what we expect to get back. Like if we know, okay, we're asking for 1.5 inch thick ribeyes, that we should get X number of ribeyes back per calf, you know, or per certain calf, we're expecting X number of ground beef, you know, and then when they come back, you kind of see, did we meet those? Did we exceed those? Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy day when you unpack the beef.
It is, because as of late, I mean, our harvest dates, we're processing 6 to 8 head, and so that gets a little overwhelming. You know, I usually have to call in some reinforcement, like Keaton, he's big on help me unload, and Harley's helped, and Connor's even helped. So I do call in some reinforcements just so we can efficiently move the beef, get it all counted, and put into our inventory. And so
so you're literally taking, if you had to estimate when you get a shipment of 6 steers back, do you have any idea how many boxes of beef you're working with? I mean, is it 100 or way more than 100?
It'd be close to 100. I would say, I mean, lately it's been like 2 or 3 pallets. And just in ground beef, that's already almost 3,000, 2,000 pounds of ground beef. So it's a lot of boxes. Yeah.
So each box is going to be labeled with a sticker from the plant that says the name of the cut, the lot number, which you then tie it back to the steer.
Yes.
And you count every
bit of it.
Every single cut that,
we'll you're
not counting the individual ground beef pounds,
ground beef, we've got a set weight on those, so we know what they're labeled on. As far as weight-wise, we got to count already, but we're counting all the cuts from the ribeyes, the sirloins. We'll count the humps to be sure we got 2 per head, you know. The briskets. We'll just make sure we get a count and a weight. So we do calculate the weights on everything we get in also to determine that dressing percentage per head, you know. Make sure we're at that, or at least close to that 60% dressing. Some might be lower. We've gotten some as low as, I think, 58 before, 56. But those numbers have increased. We've been yielding a lot more. And as far as when we get that calf processed, if it's at that age and weight, we typically do get a good yield on them.
Brahman breeders know, you want the finest herd? You have to start with the finest Brahman bull semen. And there's no finer selection than at BRC Ranch. Our champion makers are exactly that, but we know variety is essential. We also offer semen from low birth weight bulls, polled/scurred bulls, and sexed heifer semen. BRC Ranch works to release orders within 3 to 5 business days, but you can always stop by the ranch to pick up your order too. Bring the top Brahman sires to your ranch. Go online to shopbrcatraire.com.
So when you get a steer back that maybe doesn't give you as much beef as what you thought, why would that be? Or what's kind of going through your head of, if you're expecting, I think I was saying our average retail product per head is 4,100. But if you get one that's lower than that, what goes through your head?
I would say, as far as that goes, I would think that total weight gain, muscle, I mean,
I'm just sorting our spreadsheet for fun. So our most retail product we got per head was a calf that was $6,600 worth of retail product. That was in 2025. That was this year. BRC 339. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Okay, no. So that number, wrong? That number is high right now, actually, because he's getting processed right now.
Oh, okay.
And so we haven't gotten those cuts back quite yet.
Okay, so here's like BRC 202. That was one of our high grading or high processing. That one says it was a bull. This was back in 2023. It was harvested. Was that a show bull? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it was.
That was a bull. That was a show bull. He got something happened and he had to go to the beef program.
I believe it might have been fertility testing him.
I think
that might have been it. But that wasn't, an old show bull.
Okay, but then here's some that we only made $1,000 on. And I'm looking at that. Oh, these just must be young cattle, because this one says, their live weight was really low, like 600 pounds. So I don't know.
See, and that's something that does take quite a bit of arranging as far as the age and weight that they might be at. And that's ultimately what I think is the biggest thing about it when we get one that doesn't yield as much as it might have been on the smaller end of that lot we might have processed.
Or maybe a longer days on feed. I'm like sorting this. So in our early years, I don't know if we want to get into this now, but like in our early years, well, obviously the goal of a beef program is to make money, right?
Right.
But
Yeah. Or break even.
Or break even. Yeah, at least not lose money. But I mean, I'm looking at this spreadsheet and there's probably like 20. There's a whole screen of ones that lost money. And a lot of these were in our early years, you know. And when we look at it, you can see things like the one that we lost our AWS on, like, was we lost $2,300 on this steer or on this bull. And if I look at if we remember, I mean, I look at the name, I remember him. He was a show bull, actually, and this was in 2020, so very early years.
It was early. I remember him. I think that goes into the input costs. You know, he was on show feed for so long,
and his feet went bad.
His feet
went bad. That's the sire of this calf we don't use anymore. That was from some early calves that we were experimenting with a certain sire, and we don't use anymore. But like, I think that's a situation, though, that a lot of people could relate to. Like, if you're breeding, you try a new bull that you don't know what to expect, and you get a calf, and you're like, oh, this is exciting. He's going to be a show bull, because by pedigree, this should have been a show bull. This should have been a high-quality show bull. But then the longer days on feed, this one had 500 days on feed because he was a show bull, but he just kept getting worse and worse. And then when we made the decision, hey, this guy, he needs to go to the steer program, we were already so much in the hole, you know. What do you do? Do you cut your losses? But that's not a typical animal in our steer program. That's like an outlier, right?
Yes.
Someone who got into the steer program because he failed as a show bull.
And I think we've definitely gotten, especially with Brandon and Keaton and their eye and their, you know, willing to cull heavily now at an early age. Like I think we recently, this last cash rating we did, there was a bull that, you know, had the genetics, the pedigree, the look and everything, but he had 2 bad front feet. And we were like, oh, do we, you know, try and hoof trim him and stuff like that to fix him? We're like, no.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah.
He immediately went to our, you know, steer program. So it's something that does affect your bottom line. And, you know, even though you're investing in trying to make a bull a show bull, you know, it's not worth your time and money.
Yeah.
He should be just in a beef program.
Yeah. I love looking at the spreadsheet because really we have, I wish y'all could see our spreadsheet, but we have like a conditional formatting to where the profit cell will turn red if we lost money.
Yeah.
And if I scroll back to the very beginning, which was in 2019, when we were harvesting, like out of the first 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are losing money. So 50% of them were losing money. But now as we scroll back, I mean, in these last, I don't know if we lost money on a single one last year. Not one. You know, like we've got the system down.
Yeah.
You know what works. You know, with the type of cattle, the genetics that work. You kind of know the days on feed you're shooting for, stuff like that. I thought it would be interesting because we do track sires. People always ask us, well, what are the sires that do best in your beef program? Actually, so from the early days, the most steers we have are noble calves. We had 13 noble calves, and of course those were back in the beginning stages. A lot of those, if I remember, they would probably have been put in there for birth weight. Yeah. You know, because noble is a larger framed, heavy birth weight. But on average, the noble steers we had in our program, they made a profit of $955 per head. That's great profit.
Oh, yeah.
The next one would be Dutton. And we've had 10 Duttons. Their average profit is $1,300 a head, you know, which is really good. If you look at the comparison between Noble and Dutton, I think it's interesting because our Nobles were averaging 344 days on feed, and our Duttons were averaging 208 days on feed. That's like 100 days, right?
Yeah, big difference there.
But if you think about those two bulls, that makes perfect sense because Noble is bigger. Yeah. You know, they're going to take more feed to reach that point where Dutton is more moderate framed.
Yes. Easy
flushing. And then it shows because what's that, nearly $400 more profit per head?
Yeah.
From those? That's interesting, I think.
It is. It goes back to the type of cattle that we're, you know, shooting for at BRC.
Yeah.
You know, we're shooting for real world cattle that, I mean, they're performing in the show world, but they're also going to get out and do their thing in the market for the commercial cattlemen. So, yeah, just like those numbers there, if those commercial guys are using our bulls, they can, expect them to convert that weight or that feed into weight per day of age. I think what we had those bulls sent over for that ST Genetics deal, and one of our bulls gained the most per day.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting, and I think he might have been a noble too.
Yeah. It's cool when people can see the real world application of this, that it's all these things that you hear about and talk about, but maybe sometimes as Brahman breeders with the show focus, you don't understand why, or why, like, let's say judges like a heavier muscled calf. But in this program, a heavier muscled calf is going to give you more pounds of beef, and bottom line, more pounds of beef is more retail product.
Yes, no,
more
I
money.
think we published an article, and our big key point there was power equals pounds equals profit, and that's for the commercial cattlemen, and that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah. We should have broken down what is our retail product breakdown. You would probably know this in your head, but I know ribeyes bring in, like ribeyes and fillets and New York strips, the middle meats, they bring in a large portion of that, that $4,500 value. But the next one would probably be ground beef.
Ground beef,
it?
Yes, I think that makes up a big chunk of it. Also, just because the popularity of it, and we do a lot of specials. People buy it in bulk. They love that stuff. They come in and grab it by the totes. We sell those 50-pound bags, and they sell quick.
They
like if I'm restocking anything throughout the week, it's going to be ground beef.
Yeah. And really ground beef, again, at a basic level, that's coming from the round. That's the muscle shape. That's expressive muscling,
Yeah.
I really wish that every person who was a show cattle breeder and even a beef producer could come with you for one day of beef unloading and see what you see, and then sit down with you when you're entering your break evens and see how
we're making this work. And not only that, but see the quality in the meat we're getting.
Let's change in a little different direction to talk about the Farm Fresh Network.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the really cool aspects of your job, I think.
Yeah, that's something I didn't know was going to be a part of this job when I got it, but I do love it. It's one of the most exciting parts of it, to be able to work with the schools locally. It's like that relationship and knowing that these students that are local here are going to be, trying out or consuming this Brahmin beef that's just lean, healthy. It's full of those omega-3 fatty acids. Like, it's something that it's health conscious, and it's provided to the younger generations, and they're getting word that they're being provided this beef locally, and it's 100% purebred Brahmin beef.
I know your closest school you do is about 20 minutes away, but we've done schools in downtown Houston before.
Yes.
And, this is through Texas Department of Ag, and we're in the Farm Fresh Network, but I mean, you and some of the cafeteria food service managers, y'all are besties.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I think I get a call from them, once every other week, pretty much, when they're making orders. So, and whenever I took that deal over in last year in 24, we sold 4,000 pounds to Sci-Fair ISD and nearly 1,600 pounds to Van Vleck. Now, going into this year, Van Vleck, they've already ordered over 3,500 pounds, and by the time the school year is over in May, they would have purchased 6,000 pounds of ground beef.
And I have some friends that go to that school, and the kids can really tell a difference, So do you know what dishes they're making, or what meals? I know they do a lot with ground beef.
Yeah.
And they do beef tips, right?
Yes.
With a stew
beef
meat.
tips and carne asada.
Yeah, carne asada. I mean, I have heard from kids that go to that school that they can definitely taste a difference, and that the food that the lunch meals that they're getting are like gourmet, like good, healthy meals. I love that.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
It's
a big deal. And it's great because it's local, but it's also in big volumes. It helps us move our supply in those drastic big numbers. Yeah.
You work with some catering contracts too,
yes.
From time to time.
Yes. Like barbecue,
the steaks,
yes. Some churches.
Yeah.
Churches.
You've done
actually
2 of those, right?
Yes.
Like a church steak night where we provide all the steaks.
Yes, those are big too. They'll purchase, several hundred ribeyes or New York strips.
That's fun. Okay, we're kind of wrapping up, but I think we should talk about the freezer, the walk-in freezer. I think we should talk on that. So, were you here? Have we had the freezer the whole time you've been here, or no?
The whole time since coming back in May.
Yes. So originally, when we very first got started, we purchased an upright freezer that was put in our garage. We purchased it from Lowe's, and we got 2 steers back, and we did not. The meat from the 2 steers would not fit in that one upright freezer, and we were panicking. It was me and Brandon. We had driven from Poth, Texas, Dean and Peeler to pick it up, and I was like calling both of my grandmas at that time saying like, can I put this meat in your deep freeze? Like, I was calling every person I knew that had a deep freezer. And then we got a really big kind of chest freezer that we used. But really, we were limping along until that, and at that time, what we were doing, 2 head every 2 weeks. And we were constantly driving to the feedlot, driving to the processor. Our game changed when we got our walk-in freezer. And I think we've shared this story, but our walk-in freezer came from Brad Arm's family, who is the owners of 160 with us. And their business is commercial refrigeration like that. And so that's how we were able to get that freezer. And that walk-in just changed things for us. Now we're doing 6 head instead of 2. Can you fit about 6 head in there, or you think you could fit more?
You could fit more. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
I bet we could fit 10 to 12 head in there. Mm-hmm. It makes a big difference.
It's made a huge difference.
Yes.
And just having it there, where we are constantly not having to go back and forth, but you do have to deal with that freezer a lot.
Yes. Right? So that freezer does require maintenance.
The level of anxiety that a freezer can cause is off the charts. If you had to identify your number one anxiety causer at this job, it very well might be the freezer.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Especially like when we get bad weather and we lose power. It's we need to be sure. We had that one occurrence where I think Brandon, Keaton, and I were all in Louisiana. Yes. This was one of those early trips. Freezer went out and had been out a couple hours where that temperature had already risen in there.
And it was me and Connor moving we had a flash sale. Remember, Connor was like just packing in. So we have the walk-in freezer, which we use for our storage. And then in the store, we have 3 or 4 retail freezers. Yes. We display stuff in too. And that's been a huge system, know. What else have we missed? Anything on your list? Because
I feel like I've been scrambling around.
That's how we always do on these. We just jump around in different things.
I did want to say, or I guess Brahmin carcasses. I think we covered some of it already, but the ranch as a whole, I did read this where starting out before you guys got into the beef business, we were at a 60% of the herd were grading choice.
No, it was like 20%.
20%.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but starting the business, y'all had the herd at 60%.
Right.
And then now we're at 80%, over 80% of the herd are grading choice. So I think that's vital.
Yes, that's been a 15-year period. I mean, it wasn't the year 1 when we did that initial benchmarking of the ultrasound, but we started somewhere.
And it's been steady improvements. And that's, like I said, Brandon, he's big on that, where we're just, keeping running those numbers, evaluating our cattle and, judging those bulls, not from just structure and physical appearance, but getting those numbers on their back fat, rump fat.
Well, we've done so much of that now. I mean, we're over 200 head, but especially if we're buying steers from a customer or something, and they give us the pedigree, you and I, Brandon, Keaton, we feel very confident of whether we think those cattle are going to grade or not off of their pedigree. I mean, and even in the purchase steers that we've purchased, I don't think we've ever had a problem with them not grading.
No, I think we've been surprised by some. I think we bought a lot one time. They were high choice. 2 of the 3 were high choice. So they surprised us too.
We know the genetics now. Now, we don't purchase every steer that we're offered. We have had some deals where people are like, hey, I have these steers, but maybe you look at the bottom side of the genetics that, isn't BRC, and we know kind of what they are. Yeah. And that's why I guess I can sympathize with the cattle buyers. You hear a lot of Brahmin breeders who are like, why do we always get a discount? Well, at the end of the day, we got to have a choice product. We need that for our little store here. Yeah. And it's just a little local store. But if we get presented with a load of steers that someone wants us to buy and we hear that the genetics that they are not good, we turn them down. And I hate to do that to a fellow Brahmin breeder, but because we are the USA source of 100% Brahmin beef, but we're not going to buy something that doesn't have the good quality to it. Where do you see the beef program next year at this time?
Next year at this time, I'll probably be scrambling for more cattle.
You'll be driving like a Cadillac with a longhorn skull on the front of it because you'll be buying so many purebred steers.
Yes.
You'll just be traveling to Graham Feedlot and buying steers.
No, yeah. Since I've joined the team with the beef business in May, it's grown. And it's so popular now where we get phone calls and people asking questions about it, where it's coming from, and when we're going to get the next shipment in, because we're sold out of those premium cuts. Yeah.
You should talk about shipping, though, because you are the person that you and Dakota do most of the shipping.
That was something we skipped up on, I think, earlier. But what was it? The numbers from 24, we shipped to over 19 states in the U.S.
It's unbelievable.
And that was like 11,000 packages of beef.
Yeah. So, all shipping out of here. Now, most of that is humps. I will say that's our main product that people want to ship.
Yes.
And it's people are buying them from all over. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big part of our market, and getting that 100% purebred Brahmin beef out to the world. Let them know this is coming from a Brahmin. This is not Angus. This is not certified Angus. This is a Brahmin beef cut that you're purchasing and shipping, and we ship it frozen. Everything will arrive frozen. And
you're a dry ice expert.
Yes. That took a little trial and error too.
It's so typical, though, of BRC fashion of how we do things, because we were like, well, we just need to figure this out. And I think it was you and me. We just went to HEB and started figuring out dry ice.
Yes.
And now we're like dry ice experts.
But no, it's interesting for sure, especially seeing sometimes where these people are buying from. We've had packages shipped to New York, as far as New York and
West Coast a lot.
West Coast also. So it's interesting, and some of those are repeat buyers. I think that's big for sure, and expanding and getting that product known out there. But same thing for our local customers, loyal customers. They come back, they'll already have ordered, and their products will be bagged up by our wonderful team at the store. Yeah. So that's big also. The team at the store, they do a good job of helping me out and keeping me organized with what we need whenever they're making these sales.
Yeah, so I guess we would just wrap up by saying, this has been a wonderful experience for us. I mean, if you ask our team what gets us excited, I mean, the beef program gets us really excited, especially as we see it growing and stuff. And so next time you're down around this area, if you haven't ever stopped into our store, stop in. It's the ranch downtown. It's in downtown Wharton, kind of right off the square. Right as you're coming off that Colorado River Bridge. It's literally right there, and there's some really good restaurants on the square. If you like Mexican food, there's a great Mexican food, or Italian food, they have one. But yeah, next time you're in Wharton County, come in and see. We're open, like I said, the store is open 7 days a week. We used to be open Tuesday through Saturday, then we went to Mondays, and just now we added Sundays. So that's pretty impressive that every single day we're open and selling Brahmin beef here in our community.
For sure. Yeah, I would like to close out same thing, just inviting everyone, come check us out. We're right there in Wharton, Brahmin country. Another thing I would like to just say, it's the ranch downtown, the beef we provide, it's coming from BRC Ranch and through our cooperators. We're breeding cattle that are efficient, profitable, and balanced. And that's the big thing. Like as a beef manager or business manager, we're maximizing those profits. We're using technology that's accessible to us to, understand what's going on in the animal, get that quality, keep those records, record keeping big, spreadsheets big, and just providing a product that we know will taste incredible. Brahmins are beef cattle. So if we manage them right, select the right genetics, keep good records, I think, you can compete with Angus beef or any kind of other beef. It's a market and it's out there, and we've been able to make it profitable through trial and error. But, we're expanding, we're growing, and we're growing with the market, and that Brahmin beef, it's going to be here to stay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Lynn. It was great. You're going to have to come on more podcasts now.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah.
Loved it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump podcast. Our passion is Brahmin cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahmin. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at BR Castaneda. See you next time on the Over the Hump podcast.